talk in December with a joke. So I've asked you if you had any jokes, just mail them on over to me. So I have a joke to start this one up. Little Leroy went to his mother demanding a new bicycle for Christmas. Well, the matter is that he had not been a very good boy the whole year. And his mother said that she was not sure that Santa would bring him a bicycle. And so she suggested that he write a letter to maybe Jesus. So the little boy was very upset about this, and he threw a tremendous temper tantrum because he wanted this bicycle. And his mother sent him to his room, where he calmed down and he proceeded to write a letter. Dear Jesus, I've been a good boy this year, and I deserve to get the bicycle for Christmas. Thank you very much. Oh, say hi to your dad, your friend Leroy. Now, Leroy knew, this little boy knew in his heart that he really had not been a very good little boy all year, and then he figured that Jesus would know the same thing. So he ripped up the letter, and he decided to take another approach. Dear Jesus, I've been an okay boy this year, and I'll try better next year. I really want a new bicycle. You could see that I get one, please. Yours truly, Leroy. Well, Leroy knew that this really wasn't all that honest either. He hadn't even been okay this year, and he wasn't about to start trying to either. So he tore that letter and he wrote another one. Dear Jesus, I've thought about being a good boy this year. Can I please have a bicycle for my effort, Leroy? Well, when Leroy looked deep down into his heart, he knew that he hadn't even tried to be a good boy. So frustrated was he that he crumpled up this letter and he just threw it away, and he walked outside and aimlessly wandered around and found himself in front of this Catholic church. So he went inside and he sat in contemplation for a while and reflection, and he began to walk out, and he noticed that there was this whole table full of statues sitting there on his way out. So he took one of them. And immediately he had this idea. Grabbed that small statue and ran out the door, and he hid it under his bed, and he wrote his final letter. Jesus, I've got your mama. Give me a bite. So, we're talking this month about gifts. And talking about gifts, in this last month of the year, we're focusing on the gifts of the season. And they're not always the gifts that we think we deserve to have. They are the gifts that are already provided within each and every one of us. We already have these gifts. I'm going to explore that today. And just for the record, we're not talking about physical gifts. We're talking about spiritual, metaphysical gifts. Gifts of the Spirit. Gifts of the Spirit. So I shared a quote from Ernest Holmes, the founder of Science of Mind, last week, where he said, "The gifts of heaven are alike to all. How we use these gifts is all that matters." So this morning and the entire month, I'm inviting you to ask yourself two important questions. One is, what gifts of God, gifts of Spirit, gifts of heaven, am I open to receive? And how shall I use these gifts? How should I use these gifts? So what is the gift for today? The gift is the gift of peace. Greg Braden, in his book, The Isaiah Effect, speaks of having an audience with the abbot in a remote Tibetan monastery. And he asked the abbot, if there were one message that you could share with the people of the earth, what would it be? What would you like us to carry to the world outside of Tibet? The abbot's reply was simple. He said, peace is of the greatest importance in our world today. In the absence of peace, we lose what we have gained. In the presence of peace, all things are possible. Peace is the source of all things, he said. I would ask people of the world to find peace within themselves so that their peace may be mirrored in the world. I'm just going to repeat that last sentence. I would ask the people of the world to find peace within themselves so that their peace may be mirrored to the world. So are you willing to find the peace within yourselves? Are you willing to mirror this peace to the world, to all the people that you come in contact with? Or said in another way, consistent with our 2 questions for the month, are you open to receive the gift of peace? Are you open to receive it because it's present? And how shall you use the gift of peace? The day after Hanukkah, a little Jewish boy was overheard talking to his friends. He said, this was the best Hanukkah I ever got. I didn't get one thing I needed. So let me tell you, my friends, peace is a gift that we all need. Peace is a gift that we all need. And so what are your feelings and your thoughts about peace? If we truly want peace on earth, it must begin within. As the peace song that is so well known, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. It can only begin with ourselves. Remember, we can't give away what we don't have, and we also can't recognize what we don't have within us. So maybe it's time to really reflect and go within and really connect with that peace, because it is such a powerful gift. So finding the gift within ourselves. There is a core of peace, is part of our God self, that divine spark within us, that core of peace that is within each and every one of us. It is unchanging, it is transcendent, it is the truth of our being. It is the truth of our being when we're in a state of just calm and peace and well-being. But we must connect with it. We've got to tap into it. It's there. And Jesus told his disciples, let not your heart be touched, neither let it be afraid. No, let me repeat that again. Let not your heart be troubled, neither let it be afraid. My peace I leave with you. My peace I give to you. So no matter what circumstance is occurring in our lives, because we're always going to have stuff going on in our lives. We're always going to have circumstances taking place. It is to remain centered and anchored and rooted in that peace that is within each and every one of us, in spite of what is going on. To return to the peace, and always with a breath, return to the peace, return to the peace. And it reminds me of a quote that Ernest Holmes talks about. The sun is always shining, even though, like today, is a really cloudy, rainy day, but the sun is still there. It's the same thing with peace. Sometimes we have all these things going on in our lives that look chaotic and troublesome, but the peace is still shining. It's still there. And so that faith, that trust, and the spiritual practice of getting in touch with these gifts that are within us, the truth of our nature, peace being the most powerful, the most powerful. And I know that in our Prosperity Plus class, Napoleon Hill interviewed those 500 millionaires all over the world, and they came up with the four most abundant possessions that they had, and the very first one was peace. The very first one they all said was peace, and then health, and then loving relationships, and then material wealth. So peace of mind, peace, so important. The Vedic tradition, which gives rise to Buddhism and Hinduism, says, the heart and mind can find peace and harmony by contemplating the transcendental nature of the true self as supreme, effulgent light. And that's a brilliant, radiant light. So we are these brilliant, radiant lights. That's what we are within ourselves. That spark of light is our God self and is present all the time. Inner peace can only show up when we recognize the truth of our nature. And Ernest Holmes says, a realization of our oneness with omnipresence brings peace. We can connect by doing the meditation, doing the prayer work, doing the affirmations, whatever it is that you do spiritually to nurture and nourish yourself. Don't leave the spirituality out of your life, because it enriches everything else. It enriches it. When Henry David Thoreau was dying, his Aunt Louisa asked him, did he make his peace with God? And he answered, I didn't even know that God and I quarreled. He wasn't even in that state. And that's the thing for us to realize. You and God never did quarrel. You and yourself maybe had a little debate or a little quarrel. You and God, the divine doesn't recognize quarrel and anger and those things. No, the divine nature of God is the givingness of peace, of love, of joy, of abundance, of infinite wholeness. That's the truth of the unity of God that we speak of here. You cannot give what you don't have, as I said. If you are not at peace with yourself, you cannot give peace away. You can't be peace. You cannot be it. You can't mirror it to the world. So make the decision to forgive yourself, to forgive others, but to forgive yourself for all those things that you might have judged as your weaknesses, as your failures, letting go. Because ultimately, we're always going to go back to that forgiveness. Forgiveness of all things will bring us to that state of peace. You cannot be in a state of peace if you have people you have not forgiven in your lives. It won't happen. Because they rent room in your head, right? They rent that space in your head. There's a saying that I don't remember, but you know, if you kick them out, if negative people take up space in your head. So the thing is, we bless them. We just move on. We bless other people. We bless ourselves for anything that we might have judged as mistaken or a failure. We just bless ourselves. We bless anyone else, and we move into that place of peace. So take a really good look. Take a really good look at everything you've ever done and remind yourself that you really needed to do all those things to get to where you are right here, right now. Really. You really did. It's part of the soul's evolution, the soul's growth. It leads us onto that energy of that higher spiritual frequency, that higher spiritual energy that is truth of our being. So making peace with yourself or acceptance doesn't mean you are not willing change. But the self-acceptance comes first, before the change can. We have to accept ourselves, love ourselves, celebrate who we are, because we're all individualized expressions of God. That's who we truly are. And I love the words of the song, I Love Myself. That's such a great song. I love myself the way I am, and I still want to grow, because outside can only come when deep inside I know I'm beautiful and capable of being the best me I can. And I love myself just the way I am. And that's really the truth. Loving ourselves, deepening into liking who we are, and then moving into loving who we are. And then the peace just naturally follows. Because God is love. So we're connecting with that great I am presence of love. And there was a passage in the Science of Mind magazine that, I'm quoting it, accomplishing love of self is easier than it sounds. It means accepting ourselves exactly as we are, admitting the things we've done that haven't helped, celebrating the things that did, and be willing to be responsible for our choices from this point forward. So now we're conscious. As we become conscious that we are creating and using the law, those laws of cause and effect, the laws of attraction, all the laws of God, we're using them whether we're awake or asleep. We're using them. They're responding to us. So now we consciously make choices. Now that we have this knowledge. Before we might have been sleepwalking through life. But when you wake up to the spiritual truth of your being, it's a conscious choice. So consciously choose peace. I choose peace today. Emmett Fox wrote, peace of mind first. Peace of mind first. And all things will follow that. It's the truth. When you're in that state of peace, all things will follow that. So where do you not have peace of mind in yourself, in your life? Where are you challenging yourself with? What are you challenging yourself with? You know, because there's things that come up, and as I said last week, a lot of those things are stories that we make up in our head about a situation. And we can be great screenwriters of our little plays and just add, all these different acts to it and find out it's not even true. So where is there not peace in your thinking? You have to know yourself a little bit. Where are you quarreling with yourself? Where are you arguing with yourself? Not peaceful. Today, I invite you to give yourself the gift of peace by releasing that. Make changes if necessary. Make the changes necessary to allow you to feel the peace that is within you. But release all of the self-flagellation, the self-blame, the guilt, all that stuff. Because it is only when you can give the gift of peace can you mirror this peace to the world, as the abbot told Rev Brady. And then mirror our peace out to the world. Thomas Merton wrote, if you are at peace, then there is at least some peace in the world. Then share your peace with everyone, and everyone will be at peace. We can begin with, or the only place we can begin anyway, with ourselves. That is the place to start, within ourselves, being the peace. Within ourselves, and then everywhere, every circumstance, everywhere we go, just be the peace, and it has a ripple effect. We are constantly being made aware of, from all the media, from the wars and the strifes of people and the nations around the world. And we know that from what we see on the media, the mass hysteria and the anger and people waving signs and all of those things. And it's taken through the news people's camera. It's taken through their camera. So we must remember that we have within ourselves our own viewing ability to see the same picture of discord, or to use our spiritual camera. We have a spiritual camera. How cool is that? We have a spiritual camera within us, right? And we can focus our spiritual camera on peace, We can turn to be the peacemakers who gave us, we can turn to the peacemakers who gave us the way. There's been many, many great avatars who've gone before and who have shown peace. All of the great mystics, all of the great spiritual leaders have been about peace. So this morning I just want to quote 3 lessons from the Master Teacher Jesus on lessons for peace. He believed and taught that evil was not an energy to resist. You remember, in New Thought, evil means erroneous thinking, not thinking in alignment with your divine self. So he believed and taught that evil was not an energy to resist. He said, resist not evil. His meaning, of course, was rather than give over to fear or evil, we are not to give it our attention. As the seed is nourished, so we nourish that, it grows. We are not to nourish the seed, he said, of evil with our attention. And part of my practice, if I do happen to come across anything that is in discord, if it's the news or if it's anything, accidents that I see, I do a blessing of peace. I do a blessing of well-being. And it can move us into a spiritual practice and help the whole situation, because we are energy beings, so we are affecting the whole of life. We are energy beings. And then second lesson from Jesus, he did not judge or condemn. He wrote in the sand for those who would stone the woman caught in adultery. He that is without sin cast the first stone. So those among us who've never made a mistake, cast the first stone. Something to remember. He taught forgiveness, always forgiveness. He answered Peter's question regarding forgiveness. I say not unto thee until 7 times, but until 70 times 7. So Jesus practiced these principles of forgiveness. And at his most painful time on the cross, he said, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do. Forgiveness, always forgiveness. And you know you have forgiven someone when that person, the thought of that person or the memory of that person can pass unharmed through your mind. Then you know. There's no triggers, no buttons. Just bless them, know that they were well. They served a purpose. You've made a choice to forgive and move on with your life. And the person who've forgiven starts to pass through your mind, and maybe there is still some residue left, so some harm might come up, and you say to yourself, I'm not going to go there. I'm not going to go there. We catch ourselves. That's part of the spiritual practice. We catch ourselves. I'm going to bless this person. Bless this person, send them on their way, because we do it for our peace of mind. Remember, that's the reason we're doing it. We're doing it for our peace of mind. What good are we then in the world if we don't have that peace of mind? It's so important. So we can apply these peace principles in our lives and in our nations today. And we don't need to stick our head in the sand and pretend nothing is going on like an ostrich, because stuff is going on. There's things going on. There are wars. There are crimes. There are things that seem very unjust in the world. But we can look at those things through the lens of peace, is what the gift would be. Looking at the things that are going on, because they're going on, but through the lens of peace and finding the forgiveness. So we can take the message from the master teacher and drop that stone. We can forgive, and we can choose not to resist evil by giving it all of our attention. And these practices all come from that place of peace within us, that place of peace. Wayne Dyer wrote, if enough of us shied away from confrontation, just imagine how much war we could eliminate. He also wrote, try taking a breather from your habit of continuously looking for occasions to be non-peaceful. Any drama kings or queens out there? Know a few? But go to that quiet place, that serene place within you, because it is there. You have to make that relationship with it. And it might be covered with a lot of layers. That's why the spiritual practice is important, so that we can actually feel it and be in touch with it and know that it is present within us. And it is from this place that we can mirror the peace. And here, your emphasis is on giving rather than receiving peace. Giving the peace. By being the peace, you're actually giving the peace. When you are mirroring peace to the world, you are not seeking anything. You are a peace provider. Love that. You are a peace provider. Isn't that beautiful? You do not seek peace by looking into the lives of others and wishing that they would change so that you could then have peace, because it doesn't work that way. I've tried it. It doesn't work that way. The peace is within us. So if there's any change to be made, that change is made within us. So the stakes are very high right now for those we love, for our world, and for future generations. It's very important, this gift of peace that I'm speaking of. It really is key to this whole survival of this planet, and the peace on this planet, and the peace in our lives. So let us do whatever is necessary to dive into this peace, to embrace this peace in all of its different guises, and spread its healing energy, because peace heals. Peace heals. So as a spiritual being, because that's what you are, as a spiritual being, are you embracing the gift of peace this holiday? Peace within yourself, within your family, be the peacemaker in your family and the world. Peace is a spiritual gift that very often is missing from our lives and from the world. So giving it to the world, it might feel like a challenge, or certain people it might feel like a challenge, but find a way to be the peace and give the peace. Because it starts with one thought, it starts with one intention. And I want to close the talk today with a Christmas poem which depicts Santa's challenges with his North Pole enterprise, and his challenge also with finding politically correct gifts. And it's a challenge.